the pressure off, you know what I mean? Of really trying to like grasp them and explain them,
Well,
you
say
know.
that again, Tom. What
Well,
takes the
well, it takes
pressure
the
off?
pressure off of trying to grasp, totally get them down and grasp them into words and be able to explain them to someone. Because if you're explaining it to someone, you're not really you're explaining something, but it comes through in your very being. It comes through in who you are. You know what I'm saying? And the words point to it. The words can never capture it, but the words point to it.
Yeah, I loved what you said about you notice that through creativity, that um, the three principles, they're formless energy. You can't see them, touch them, but that is the three principles is what we use to to create
Yeah.
in the world of form, what we use to guide us through life.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what other insights have you been seeing about this? About the principles, about being humans?
I, I I see the opposite a lot. Um, I see how outside in type of thinking at my work all the time. We just had a training today, and so part of the training is conversations. It was about power struggles, self awareness, stuff like that. And the other half, which is interesting, is about the restraints we do at the job, right? The physical part. And a lot of the conversations, a lot of good people there, a lot of people that mean well, a lot of burnt out people as I looked around the room, because this was just the high school for today, and
High school? Yeah.
yeah, these are high school staff. They're in our high school part of the school, and so I work in high school as well, but I was helping part of this training for them, and of course this is even the trainers themselves and everyone. It doesn't make me any better. I've gotten lucky, I guess, to see this, to hear this in a way, to be able to see things at a different perspective, because it's tremendous looking back at when I used to look outside in, and now it gives me more of a compassion for people if I see the other way. I, I've been told, oh man, you're soft now, or you let the kids get away. I just kind of know when to figure it out and when to kind of help them, bring them down, and when to stay strict, and so I saw a lot of finger pointing, and
In this
it's
meeting.
in the meeting, and that happens in every meeting, and that is the personal gets very, you could feel it in the room, especially right now as the year goes along. You see the meetings get more personal, more because people are more in their heads, and stuff like that, added on top of whatever personal stuff they have going on outside of work. Now you have kids who have these behavioral issues and these things as they see it coming in, um, and a lot of finger pointing, a lot of stuff innocently, right? All innocent, of course, but it's interesting to see how a simple just redirection of looking inwards. It seems so simple, but 4 years ago seemed so far
Ooh,
to
could
me.
you say more about that? Because, and I'll just interject something here. What I love is because I think we've all felt like we've had to walk on eggshells because we feel almost, I'll speak for myself, I almost felt guilty that how did I deserve to be in the right place at the right time? How did I get so lucky to find out about Sid, find out about the principals, have all these amazing teachers? And like you were saying, they were people who also learned from Sid. And you hear from all these people who are not only psychologists, housewives like Elsie Spittle, who really have seen what Sid saw to a large extent. And so we all learn from them as well. And so, I would be in a meeting like that in the, years ago when I was working at the Child Guidance Clinic, for instance, or Grove Hill Medical Center. And I would hear the same thing. People like some things that were said, there was so much judgment about a client as though they're in their diagnosing of the problem. I really heard a hierarchy, like wanted to say, who the hell do you think you are? But of course, I'm not going to say that. But there is a way, and who really exemplifies this for me is what Christine Heath and Judy Sedgman are doing in their podcast called Psychology Had It Backwards. It's not a put down. There's an evolution, the same evolution that took place in medicine. We're not bloodletting now. We're not performing lobotomies. Those people were not bad humans. It was psychological innocence. They were innocent to the fact that, you should wash your hands before you cut off a leg. And that just came to humanity's attention not that long ago, when you look at the length of the time we've been on the planet. So it's not a put down. It's like, man, there's something. Why are you taking crumbs when you can have the most amazing cake? There's got to be a way to say what we know without people feeling offended, and rather feeling, oh man, there's this wonderful thing. I want you to know about it too. It'll really help these kids. It'll really help the kids. I mean, you're working with disadvantaged or developmentally delayed, or
some delayed, some everyone loaded with different labels, right?
Can you imagine though, if your whole staff understood the principles, understood psychological innocence? How would that affect those kids?
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, because as I started that the incubator thing, I really was focused really on the kids, right? And it's interesting because we were said, part of the thing was, oh, bring a project. And of course I thought of a project outside of me, instead of the first 2 months has been kind of peeling back some of my old insecure thinking about that I'm not good enough. And I understand that now I'm ready. It's time. The part I'll say that I was luckiest for, but even that is labeling it, is my exes who found your name. I was going to go to a different therapist. Okay. So that put your name on the radar. And then, but me meeting you wasn't coincidence when I scheduled the appointment, because I see now I was finally ready to hear something, whatever it was. I was finally in place to, and since I allowed myself to open up that door, the rest of it makes sense. It's all, I've met people at the right time and things that fall into places. So it's just interesting. So if I want to say a time was lucky, was she was the one that got your name, and I'll never forget, she got your name in August. and I remember March 17th is when I made the appointment with you.
Well, you have a good memory.
Well, because I knew, because that's the day she broke up with me.
Oh,
That was the same day. It was right, but I had just made the appointment. That'll always stick with me because at that time, with how I viewed stuff, I hit rock bottom. But now I understand that that's the moment I became free, not because of her, not because of her. It had nothing to do with her. I had made the biggest step for myself. I had started the process of taking off the mental chains or the things that were starting to weigh me down. Yes, I met you that next Thursday, but me doing that was already me slowly starting to do that. You know?
you know what I want to ask you, Brian? Would
Yeah.
you say that you feel burnt out at your job?
So no, but that's the part that sometimes I don't want to get into conversations about because everyone else is burnt out and I don't want to say that I'm not.
Well, I'm so glad we're having this conversation because why not? Have you, let me also, even before you answer that, I got another question. And I want you to answer the truth. And you too, Tom, I want you to answer the truth because I don't know the answer to this. Have either of you ever run across, and I know you've both run across a lot of people in the Three Principles community. Have you ever run across anybody who's burnt out?
For a moment, if they're in their mind, because it can happen to anyone, right? You can see the humanity in it, but not long term. Not like what depression took me over, what certain things that I did before. I'm human. Yes, I have feeling. I still get caught up in it.
We get bummed out. We all get bummed out, but it doesn't last long.
I can feel burnt out for a fraction of time, a portion of time. Absolutely. But then
you wouldn't say, I'm going to leave my job. I'm burnt out after all these years.
Not burnt out. You're right. I wouldn't say the word burnt out, but I've seen it just in my mind where I'm done with this. I'm done with this. This is too much. This is too much.
And then that lasts about how long? And how's the long? How long would that last?
It varies. It can depend. Because if I put a time on it, I could be lying. Some days I don't want to get, there's been days where I don't want to get out of bed because I don't want to go to work. That hasn't happened recent, but there's been days, and all it took was for me to slide out of bed, like literally slide out of bed, barely get out, but I got to work, saw the first few staff, right? I'm walking in there with all this, it's going to be a shitty day. Walk in, talk for a few staff, see a couple kids, give knuckles, and all of a sudden I forget that I barely got out of bed.
So you're maybe more resilient because of what you know about how we work psychologically. Maybe you.
I'll say, so I don't know always the words what resilient mean. I'll say that I probably was always resilient because I've always gotten through all my bad thoughts, but they weighed on me. They don't weigh on me now. I don't have the feeling of the world being on my chest.
So why wouldn't you not want to share that with your staff at work?
So it's not, I think it's place. I think that what I've noticed, especially at first, was when I want to speak to someone about their mind, if they were not viewing things too well, and I still don't have a problem sharing it. But what I've noticed was, I know it's just thought, or I know it's just this. They weren't, it just innocently being just in their minds, it's in their heads. Just like if you told me, if I'm in my head and you told me it's just your thinking, Brian, you might get a snap back at you. You might get, Lily, I know that.
Right. But why would you say it's just your thinking as opposed to, I don't know, what can we say? Let's open it up to Tom too. What can we say to people that we meet up with and we know that it would help them if they could see at a deeper level? I think you're questioning this too, being a practitioner now.
So one sec, Tom. Do you mean in a training setting or you mean day to day? Because I have no problem getting in front of people. this needs to be shared. That will be a piece of my next move, because I'm and I want to hear Tom too, is I started that project thinking of the kids, and I'm starting to really have this inside voice that thinks, do you go after the staff?
Yeah.
Do you go after the staff first? Because if the staff can look at the kids lovingly, they'll already be in a more loving spot than to go from there. So it's changing my thinking. In the moment, they might not want to hear, but I don't think there's not a question in my mind about wanting to share it and having thought. That's why I love talking to people. I write down notes all the time and then think more about it, because you hear something different. Tom said several things last week that stuck with me, and I wrote down and I've thought about. And that's why I love conversations and coming on to as many groups, because you get so many different perspectives. Mine's just the one. And then what do I have is, it can be tougher for me to notice my personal thinking instead of Tom's. I can see through a lot of other people, but through mine, it's mine. So it's harder to see through. But go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, well, Brian, I was curious, in your work, do you have the potential to like propose a training and actually do it?
So funny you say that. Long story short, 3 years ago, I learned iHeart. I brought it.
Mm-hmm.
They asked me the question about Thing, and I shut down. This year, I brought it up, and they said that it was too short of a period because they want a curriculum. I'm okay with that, understandable. So, but that was when I did it with the kids.
Right.
I haven't brought it to about the staff yet, because the staff insight and voice and that thing has been coming the last like 2 weeks, and I've been kind of processing it, because it's just this thing that keeps telling me, how about the staff? How about the staff? How about the staff? And it's funny, because the other day I was starting to write just about some ideas for the kids, and right away I slashed the line and started writing all the thoughts I was having about the staff, because it was trying to tell me staff. But it's funny how I kept innocently fighting back for more ideas for the kids, and kept writing more ideas for the staff. It was just interesting.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I do have the potential.
It would be cool if you had the opportunity to do a training on something in this world, or whatever. There's so many things one can talk about, but it seems like it would have a really positive impact.
Yeah,
it's just sharing what you've seen. It's just sharing
Mhm.
what's helped you tremendously working with these kids.
Mhm.
The stories you've shared with me, Brian, it's like, my God,
Yeah.
the kids know the difference.
Well, and it's funny, because every day I have what's also sped up my process, maybe, or helped some of the I literally see it every day, what outside in thinking does.
Well, what do you mean? What does it do?
Maybe kids acting out, right? It's simple things. A kid not understanding an assignment, not knowing or doesn't want to, in front of their friends, ask for help because they already feel dumb. Asking for help or getting made fun of might make them feel more dumb themselves, because that's their thing, but they see it outward. They look at, and then so they have behaviors. It's easier to have a behavior, do something, leave the classroom, something, and get yelled at. Because when you're getting yelled at or getting taught, you're not doing the assignment. You're getting away from what you were trying to get away from. So a lot of staff, understandably, see, I used to be in the classroom too. So there's different perspectives, right? You have staff inside the classroom working with the kids a lot more. You have staff like myself outside the classroom. You have clinicians. You have a lot of different perspectives and people who have a lot of ideas, and so things are tried, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But it's in these types of groups, and even the 31, I understand that things are shared and whatever, but you see the openness and the willingness of people that will share things when they feel that they're not going to be judged back, or not really that they're not going to, in their minds, they don't feel like they're going to get judged back, right? Because I guess it taps into that thing that, hey, what's really going on, at least for me, as I think about it, is okay, I feel comfortable with this person, so I'm not actually judging myself. But if I'm talking to like a clinician back in the day, I would be judging my not having college, being dumb, these things that I'm already carrying into that conversation. And it's freed me of that. Well, freed me from the most times, right? I have those moments. And what I do better now as I continue is it's a barometer. Oh, shoot, you might be way off right now, right? But even that's not even call all the time. I think that's one of the biggest things with the 3P or anything is you're going to have feelings. You're not going to be some monk up in the mountain somewhere. It's just very difficult to do, in my opinion, with the world we live in. Yeah, could it happen? 100%. 100%. Yeah, we're all striving for that in a way. But that just doesn't seem like how it happens. The human experience it's more of a roller coaster type of a thing, and it depends on where you go with it and how you want to ride it. I had a great example the other day given to a kid. Do you guys like the feeling of anxiety? Like to you two, this is what I was asked. Where do you guys feel anxiety? Do you feel it physically when you have those thoughts of like anxiety? Right? Like I feel mine here. Like I always did. And they said like, okay, so they were telling these kids that I was in the group with, they was to these inmates, these juveniles. And they were like, of course we don't like that. And they're like, okay. And they said, do any of you guys like going on roller coasters? And I think 3 out of the 4 raised their hands. And she said, do you get that feeling on a roller coaster? And they're like, yeah, for sure. And they're like, why do you like it then and not like it?
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It was, and you see it, certain little things, and you're like, and that's why it's good to, the 3Ps have it's formless. We all add our personal thought into it.
Yeah.
But that paints pictures and continues the conversation as we know it. But that's why I loved words can point to it but not grasp it. I think that's what you said, or something similar.
Something like that.
Yeah, and that was very cool to me. That really clicked with me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about just being, for me, grateful that I know what I know, and I know that there's a lot further to go, and I'm really excited about that. And that's what keeps me out of feeling burned out. Sometimes I'm not happy having to call insurance companies and get paid and all of that. But, I don't last too long with that because it's registered like, do I really want to be burdened by having to do this to get paid? No. So I wind up having a conversation with the person on the other end of the phone, So we can snap out of it a lot faster. And why would we not want everybody who wants an easier time of life to know what we've been so lucky to know, to find out about? And maybe because of the idea of doing a training that is such a loaded, can be such a loaded word. You don't want to feel like, well, I know something you don't. No, you're just sharing. That's how Elsie started teaching. Sid said, just share what you know, period. Just share what you found.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think everyone varies. I think it's bigger than sometimes. Of course, it depends on the meaning that we put on it. Some people may say, "Oh, I don't do well with talking with people." Clearly, that's just personal thought. I don't do well in front of groups. I don't do this. I don't do that. So after finding it, it's a continued work. I think what it allowed me to do is start to unlock or strip away the walls I had put up, the certain thinking,
And you realize it's just a story you told yourself. There's no truth to it.
Tom, was yours more like how, you know what I'm saying? How, like, when was for you, how's your journey gone? I guess journey chapter, whatever.
Yeah. Um, I would say it was a series of things, but then when I realized that I had been through a period of being very depressed for a long time, or a lot of the time, and at the same time as I was in this conversation, and I started to see a few little things, and then at some point when I was feeling better, I was able to reflect back. I said, well, okay, I'm feeling better, but the issues in my life have not been resolved. And before I would have said I was horribly depressed because of X, Y, and Z. Later, when I saw that I was happy and those things still existed, then I really saw it.
Bingo.
Bingo is right. Bingo. And then there's just been many, there are insights happening every day and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So, and I just have to say, unfortunately, I do have to run right at 3 because I'm meeting somebody. But yeah, and there's a longer story to that, as we all have stories. We have nice stories, nice awakening stories, which are fun to share. But that's the shorter version of it, realizing.
Before you go, Tom,